Hello and welcome to another Ask Me Anything video. This is, I think, a second or third one I've done in the past. I don't really know, but I thought it'd be fun to do before the end of 2024. So I reached out or put something out on my YouTube community page and in my Discord and said, I'm gonna do this video. What do you wanna know? So I'm gonna answer your questions. Some of you don't care. Some of you do care. Regardless, I'm glad you're here and I hope we can have some fun today. So let's go ahead and hop into the YouTube comments or questions here. And I'll try and show some on screen, but we have this first one. This one is from R. Fleming and he says, what is the longest you have let your primary sit before racking to secondary, either by accident or on purpose, and what was the result? I don't know how long I let something set. I don't know what the longest time was, but if you let your brew set on the yeast for a long time, that can be called sur-lees or sur-lies, I don't know what it's called, but you can get some different flavor profiles coming out of the yeast. It's something they do with champagne and different styles like that. So I don't know exactly for myself, but I do know that's something people do quite a bit. Muddith says, well, considering that you were probably the reason why I started making mead, what was your reason for starting to make mead? I started brewing mead on a whim 8 years ago. I wanted to brew beer. I noticed that it needed a lot of equipment and I was lazy. And so I found out mead was about 3 different ingredients and a glass carboy. And I said, I can do that. So if you go way back to the beginning of my channel, I've since privatized and unlisted a bunch of stupid videos to declutter things, but I have left some of the very original videos of me making mead on there. And that's the whole reason I started. It was simple. Latronibus, these are crazy names, says, I don't make nearly as much alcohol as you do, but since my family unit doesn't drink, we still have trouble with alcohol accumulating if I brew more than a few gallons in a year. Where does your booze go so you avoid this issue? I give a lot away for friends. I do a lot of canning and sending off with friends for fun. And then I share some, when I go to events, I'll share with people. When I go to my homebrew club, I take a lot of stuff. And, every once in a while we have a pouring event around here. And so I'll get to share it that way. I end up giving away about probably 90% of the stuff that I make. I drink maybe 10%, maybe 5% if that. So I share a lot of my booze with my family and friends. Jordy Valentine says, you make so many various things for the channel. What's your storage like? I know mine gets out of hand sometimes, particularly with large batches. Mine also gets out of hand. One thing, I'm sending off to a lot of competitions, so that's where mead is going. Part of my storage is I have a whole storage area for meads I'm sending to competitions. I put them in a specific box area. I have a wine rack full of things that I go through as well. That's almost overflowing. And then I do a lot with kegged mead. I've got 8 kegs over here, 8 5-gallon corny kegs that are full of carbonated mead. And I'll burn through it by sharing it with friends. So most of my stuff's in kegs though. If I was doing all bottles, I would be in big trouble. Swamp 1138 says, what's your future goals in regards to mead? What I mean is the channel just a hobby side gig, or do you want one day to expand into having your own mead sold in stores? That is absolutely the mission. I would love one day to have a meadery and be able to sell things and get mead out there to share with people. There's a lot of big steps, hurdles you got to jump through to do that. So that's a long-term goal. The channel itself is definitely just a hobby, something I do for fun. And that's about it. I have no plans to make it like some crazy pro thing. I think my heyday of the channel has already happened. I'm on the decline now of just having fun with it and, just going forth. But I definitely want to do more with this past YouTube. It just takes time and money and some extra stuff. One Imperfect Saint says, I started 5 gallons of Sizer in July, pasteurized it, let it sit on oak for 2 months. Everything looked great, so I bottled all of it. A month later, there's white flakes floating in every bottle. Didn't go the Camden tablet route. What is it? Didn't go. If you didn't add any stabilizers, there could be some wild bacteria that picked up in there but it's hard to say if it's mold or not. My buddy Doing the Most has a really good chart that kind of gives you visuals of what it is. I don't know exactly what it is without looking, so highly suggest you hop in the Discord and we can help you find out. Adept Nonsense asks the same question, says, do you set goals for your mead making or the channel? My goals for the channel are changing every day, basically. I started off wanting to just produce a ton of various content, and now I'm switching away from recipes and stuff like that because I've done so many, I get kind of bored with them, to these larger scale tests. So I don't really have like a long-term goal. Like I don't have a 5-year goal for the channel. I don't see the channel being active in 5 years. I think that it's not going to happen. So, earlier on, maybe like a year from now, I'd still like to be doing stuff, but I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't really other than big videos, I don't have a set plan. I just decide one day, oh, hey, I want to try this, and I go for it. So it's not like a long-term planning, unless it's a big video like a traditional mead, 20 different yeasts, or a hopped video, or my fruit one, stuff like that. X Cold Fusion X says, how much do you typically spend on a batch of mead? That's somewhere between, I don't know. That's a hard question because it all depends on your fruit. If you're using fruit, I can make a very, very good traditional mead that's 4% ABV and make it cost, $1 for a pint. But it's going to be way less ingredients. So it just depends. I've also been making a lot more crazy big meads. I made a 5-gallon no water blueberry mead that's super good, but that was 40 pounds of blueberries, 24 pounds of honey. And so that mead alone was $100 and some odd at least. It just depends on what I'm making. Orc TV says, we know man made mead, but exactly how much mead has man made? I think man has made billions of gallons of mead. Maybe not billions, millions at this point, ever since it first began. Francisco Bob, sorry, I keep butchering names, says, 2 questions. Which of your publicly shared recipes is your favorite drink that you've brewed so far? Definitely the apple cinnamon. I brew and drink probably the most of that one. I've also been making a lot of low ABV, just traditional meads, super good stuff, and that just depends on the honey. Non-mead question. Of all the instruments you play, which one do you wish you started learning and picked up as a little kid? I don't know that I would have picked it up as a little kid, but the two that I'd like to really roundabout myself or make myself better would be the bassoon and the oboe. I cannot play double reeds very well. I can play the other instruments, but double reeds are my struggle. So bassoon and oboe, I would definitely not have picked those up as a kid though. Next up is Jonathan Tiaga. He says, when doing a video, when you open a bottle that's too much for you to drink on your own, you often say, I'm going to put some stuff in it and put it away. What stuff are you putting in it? When do I say that? Maybe a cork? I probably am talking about a cork. If I opened a bottle, I wouldn't be like adding spices or something like that. I'd probably just mean like a tea cork or something like that so I can store it for later. That's probably what I meant. And now we're going to jump over to the Discord for their questions. Pyro GFX says, what's your decision process when it comes to oaking? As in what oak, both type and toast level, would pair well with a specific batch? Honestly, I just default to darker fruit. I go lighter toast generally. Or if I know the oak, like a medium toast, French oak, I know it's pretty versatile and it gets certain flavors. If I know that I want vanillin flavors in the brew, then I will make sure and add an oak that is going to add some vanillin flavors. If I want something that's going to add some kick, like a whiskey, then I'm going to add whiskey, oak chips. But generally it's just kind of, honestly, just guessing what I want to do, but also a little bit of knowledge to think, well, I think this will pair well. But the key word here is I think it will pair well. I don't always know for sure. A little bit of a guess on a lot of that. Netherquit says, what 5 mead recipes would you recommend for someone new to mead making that would help introduce new learning opportunities or flavor profiles? Oh, 5 is a lot. Honestly, I would say just make a big traditional mead and then split it out and do a fruit that you like. Find a spice that you like. It could be cinnamon, it could be vanilla, it could be whatever, stuff like that. And really you could do a couple different fruits and spices and combos like that. And then of course, a traditional. I wouldn't say specifically like you have to do the apple cinnamon and you have to do the blueberry, but those are definitely solid recipes that I've created. For the experience though, everyone's gonna have a different experience. I highly encourage you to curate the flavor profile that you like the most, because you might not like the apple cinnamon flavor. And so me saying you have to go make apple cinnamon is not gonna be good for you. So make a big batch of traditional and then split it out and do a bunch of various flavor profiles that you like. Nova says, personal, but how is the work-life balance since you've had your little one? It's honestly, I've done way less with video content, but you would never know that because I stockpiled so much video footage and finished videos that I'm still 7 or 8 months out of footage and videos that I've done or finished pre-kid at this point. So, you know, I feel like I haven't hit it super hard yet because I've been leaning on all those videos. I've been definitely slowing down on the amount of content I'm producing, but that also came in tandem with the desire to do a different sort of content and not just push out a recipe video, but to make them more intentional, to do a A/B test or hit different things that are more interesting to me. So that's just a different kind of content that I'm starting to do. The balance is good so far. I can't complain. When I run out of videos, we'll see what happens then. Mead, she says, when to put into primary and when to put into secondary. So I don't have a great answer for this. I'm developing an answer for fruit specifically. I know that I can tell you for spices, I much prefer spices in the secondary. You have more control over their flavor impartation into your brew. For fruit, I'm running a huge test with 15 different fruits. This test is seeing which flavor profile or, you know, does fruit, let's say cherry in the primary versus the secondary, which one tastes better or what sort of flavor differences are we getting? So I don't have concrete evidence yet. That will be data that comes out in the middle of next year because I'll do my big tasting for that to be able to say. But generally speaking, you can get good fruit flavor out of both sides. If you want more tannic profile from your fruit, you want to do it in primary. And later you can get some tannin, but it's just not as much. For spices, secondary, that's kind of the big ones there. Green Mountain Mead asked, what types of mead would you prioritize making at the commercial level? Definitely low ABV stuff. I very rarely make anything above 10%, 8% at this point because I really like low ABV stuff. I think it's just so much better tasting and much more fun to drink because you can drink more of it ultimately. So definitely low ABV carbonated session meads is the goal there, and I'm slowly working to take my homebrew level recipes and figure out how I could do them on a commercial scale, which is different. It's not a one-to-one necessarily. Stinger89 says, favorite mead you've made process-wise and flavor-wise? Worst meads process-wise? Favorite one? Honestly, it's really fun to do these no water meads because they're just like, it's a bombshell of flavor, and the process is interesting because you're actually taking and you're pressing fruit and you're punching the cap down. It's very wine-like profile. You're also having to figure out how to balance these just huge big meads. So those have been kind of fun. Also though, the really simple ones, like I made a 4.5% just a trad with, what kind of honey was it? I can't remember what kind of honey it was, but super, super good. Oh, it's just orange blossom. Just orange blossom traditional. It took no effort at all. 1 pound of honey per gallon, and it's just so good. That's also pretty fun to make. Worst to make and process, honestly, the candy stuff. I started making the candy mead videos like 5 years ago as a meme, just as something stupid to do. And they're not fun necessarily because they never really turn out good. It's all just clickbait, stupid stuff. And it's really funny to watch those be the big marketers for mead right now and the foundation for channels, because that's not, in my opinion, real mead. And all the videos I've done as just like a joke. Yeah, there's been no serious tone of me making a Swedish fish mead, but it's really funny for somebody to market their whole world on fake candy or stuff like that. It's pretty silly. Alf Saville says, what are the biggest problems you see in the mead community right now? Bad advice, practices, or attitudes? What is something... okay, the first one. So what's interesting is 2 or 3 years ago, I made a video on the 3 big problems in the mead community, and I'll link to it below. I was rewatching that video a while back just because I was curious what I said. I couldn't remember exactly. And a lot of the stuff that I said there is still true today, in that we have a divide that is inorganic versus organic brewers. We have YouTube channels and educators that are promoting bad practices or saying things just to get more clicks. I think the YouTube algorithm has really pushed the more negative side of the hobby forward. And so people are getting attracted to mead making specifically because they saw something that was just a good clickbait. And then they get into it and they think, oh, that's easy. Or they learn some bad practice and they make a brew and then their brew doesn't turn out very good. And then they say, well, that was bad. I don't want to do this again. So at the end of the day, I think we just have a bunch of people that are throwing things into the ring and people don't know what to do with it. It's just muddying up the waters, unfortunately. So I think that's a big issue. Still have the inorganic-organic divide. And that video is pretty much the same. Everything there is true today, which is kind of sad. He also asks, what is something you've wanted to brew but haven't been able to? What have I not been able to brew? Probably some weird fruit, honestly. I don't have anything like, off the top of my head, I don't have any fruit that I'm like, I have to do that. But I'm sure there's something. JJ says, your advice on how one can become a better steward of the mead community. I think it all starts with you. 1, making mead, sharing it with your friends, and hopefully you're giving them the good mead. And I say that because we all make bad meads, myself included. Some of my stuff is not very good. And some days I dump those things down the drain because I'm not going to give a bad mead to a friend just to get rid of it. I want to make sure that when they try mead, especially for the first time, that they have a good basis of what it is. So giving them good quality mead. And that's basically it. That's all you got to do to be a good steward of the mead community. Of course, being a part of the Discords and the YouTube community and stuff like that, always encouraging people to try it and experiment and stuff, but I think we should also encourage people to find a common path. Let's all have a common path of making quality, regular, traditional mead. And then you can kind of go off the path, but you're always coming back. Every day, my basis is I want to be a good brewer of traditional mead, and now I'm going to go make a, Sour Patch Kid mead. Oh, and then coming back. Oh, now I'm going to make a cranberry mead. But let's also all have a good base road we're on. And that's just encouraging other people. Kish Knock says, what is a good mead recipe for beer and whiskey drinkers? I think somebody says it below in this, but Bochet's are very good for whiskey drinkers because they kind of hit that darker, toastier, in-your-face note, which is good. And for beer drinkers, Braggott's, obviously, because it's a combo beer mead. But what I've found is a lot of beer drinkers also like the lower ABV, just traditional stuff like that. They like that as well. So actually, my blueberry muffin mead is one that I have made a couple times now. It's very good. And I had some friends over and they were just losing their mind about it. And they're big beer drinkers. And to me, somebody who's drinking Coors or whatever, I don't know, Lagunitas, stuff, I'm thinking of stuff that's around me. A beer, when they drink that and then you go over to this sweet pastry mead, those don't go together at all, but you'd be surprised at what people like. He also says, I want feedback on my meads, but I don't want to spend all the money on shipping to a comp, and I don't know anyone locally with much mead experience. Help? Your friends don't have to have mead experience to tell you if it's good. Your friends do have to have a, not necessarily good palate, but they have to have an honest ability, honest bone in their body. They have to be able to say to you, hey, this is not very good. And they don't have to necessarily use great verbiage. They don't have to say, well, your tannin structure is low, or this is too sweet, your acid balance is high, whatever. But they could say, they could do it in more layman's terms. It tastes sweet. Okay, that's easy. I can understand that. It's kind of tart. It's kind of bitey. Okay, that's probably acid. You can use the simple verbiage that someone might say to you and convert it into, oh, I know how to adjust that. But you do need friends and family that are going to be honest with you. You can't just give your meads out to somebody who's not going to care, or they just want free booze. Those are not the people who are going to give good feedback. Fearless King asks, what is your balance between experimenting with new recipes or making new recipes versus making a recipe you know will be good? What balance would you recommend to beginners? I think I throw a lot of caution to the wind with a lot of my recipes, but because I've built a foundation of understanding what mead needs, generally speaking, between your sweetness and your tannin and your alcohol balance, and what does carbonation do, I can take a very complex or crazy mead recipe like a blueberry muffin that has just a billion ingredients in it and was really just a Hail Mary of a recipe, and know what to do to change it to make it work for what I'm doing. So for beginners, I don't recommend you go off the deep end and start throwing in 17 ingredients into your brew because you don't necessarily know how to manage that many things. Start with the basics. Everyone says it. Start with a traditional mead. Understand what that's supposed to taste like. So when you make a sizer, you can still get the tastes and the elements of honey. I know what honey tastes like in a brew. So I make a sizer and I get the honey character there as well. And apple juice, so on and so forth. But stay close to home. Maybe your first 5-10 brews are a traditional and a blueberry mead. And then, okay, I'll make a strawberry mead. And now I'm gonna start, I wanna make a strawberry and let's add some cinnamon in there. Okay, let's make a blueberry and let's add this. Just like let yourself expand out over time with complexity, unless you are following a recipe to a T. There's a reason that I publish my recipes, and that's because I have spent time on them and I know they're good. So if you want to follow a recipe, by all means, but for your own experimentation, I recommend you build up over time. I would not jump in, first brew, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not following a recipe card, let me just throw in a million ingredients because you'll just be bummed. And that's the end. I just realized that's the end of all those questions. So if you have your own questions for me, put them below, and maybe next time I do this, I will try and pull those up as well. But I do like to be an open book with you guys, for the most part, obviously. And I enjoy getting to be a part of this community. I hope that you enjoy being a part of the man-made mead community and or the whatever part of the mead community you're in. It's a lot of fun to do this. And my big encouragement for all people is that you will take your stuff and share it with people. And you'll tell them what it is. When you give a bottle to someone, a friend, put a label on it. Even if it just puts like a little scotch tape and it says, this is a apple and, I don't know, pear mead. But don't walk into someone's house, no label, put the bottle on the table and say, drink it. That's pretty intimidating for someone who's trying something that they don't know. I'd be sketched out if I do that. I've received meads in the past from people who have not put any information on them. And I hate to burst your bubble, but if you don't put information on your bottle of mead, I'm probably not gonna drink it. It's not worth it to me. So put some information on a bottle, talk to them about it. Say, hey, this is like what I've done. And then they'll be more enticed to try it. But just think about that. Think from their perspective. And maybe you'd be comfortable drinking a random bottle of booze, but not all people are like that, and that's okay. Sometimes if I know the person, if BC brings over a bottle that's not labeled, I can trust him because I've tried his stuff before. So obviously that depends on your friends. If you bring over unlabeled bottles all the time, they might be used to that. But new people, maybe not as much. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, listening, and I hope you all have a fantastic end of the year. I'm going to try and get this out before the end of the year. 2025 is going to be a great year for mead making, and for myself, I look forward to doing more things, and I hope you will also dive even further into your mead making career and experience, and maybe follow a couple recipes from me if you want to do so. But thank you for watching, thank you for supporting, and I hope to see you in the future in another video. Cheers.